Hi, and welcome to another episode of At the Workplaces podcast. I'm your host, Tom Bosner, and hi, Natalie. How are you? We're back again, aren't we?
We are back again, Tom. This is like
yes, this is a weekly occurrence, and it's good. It's good fun actually to keep this rhythm going of talking about different mental health topics each week. And today's obviously to talk about the topic of burnout, and more specifically, I guess, how to protect yourself against burnout. Burnout's been mentioned a lot in the last year or so. Probably, lots of bigger picture factors affecting people's ability to stay in a neutral zone with their mental health. But we might, like what we've done with the previous weekly episodes, we might just dive into what is burnout.
Yeah. And Tom, most of us, I think pretty much all of us are having days and we're feeling really helpless and we're really overloaded and we feel very unappreciated, as we were just talking about parental burnout then, weren't we? We can find ourselves dragging ourselves out of bed a lot more. I used to be that 5:30 girl and I can see that's already even been shifted to around 6:30 a.m. girl now. And it's requiring a lot more determination and a lot more motivation. And it's because we've been in this constant state of more chronic stress that we can find ourselves in that fight or flight system that we've really found ourselves in for so long, just due to our unpredictable and uncontrolled nature and environment around us, and the ability of just things pivoting and rule changing and just a lot of different structural changes there. And we're really not built for this biologically. We're meant to use our automatic nervous system, in a lot better way, in that short, sharp bursting. So that's what's really kind of led to this chronic stress, and has really slowed down, as I've spoken about in other podcasts as well, our processing, our decision-making ability, our rationality, and that solution focus ability from that prefrontal lobe and that frontal lobe area there. And this is probably why we're kind of starting to see a lot more small daily tasks requiring a lot more effort and how we can also react probably more emotionally and emotively rather than rationally at times. And we can just have that feeling of overall exhaustion when situations just become all too hard. They're just becoming all too much. And this is so kind of, some symptoms of burnout. 2019, the World Health Organization actually put burnout as a medical diagnosis. And it does refer specifically to the phenomenon of in the occupational context. So a lot of it is connected to workplace. But as I said before, there is a lot of push again in that parental burnout side. But as we said, it is the unpaid occupation anyway, isn't it? Being a parent there. So, but burnout isn't applied to all experiences in other areas of life. It's probably more solely focused in that occupational area where you put under that chronic stress.
Okay, yeah, fantastic. And I think for when you mentioned some basic things becoming really hard, I was on the weekend. We went out. My wife and I went out for a drink, which was first time in a while. But just the mental effort in I need to get organized and thinking of all the steps to get out the door. I was like, this is really, really hard. And I think, as you were saying, it's because probably we've been under that chronic stress cycle of things feeling, a lot of fight or flight sort of mode for both of us for a while. And then suddenly you get some freedom and you're like, cool, let's do this nice thing. And I'm like, oh, my brain was just on fire trying to get out the bloody door.
It is. And that's that whole, on that precipice of that chronic stress, is you've got these lows where you think you can just get to it and you can just do it if I break it all down. But that burnout, it kind of turns into that point of what's the point? I just can't do this. So a lot of people are going to be in your position now, Tom, is that even from a work perspective where it's just like, this is all too hard, I give up. And so they're utilizing that kind of that thought pattern, that cognition, which probably leads me into, the other signs or warning signs of burnout.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the topic of work, I guess there's a lot of commentary around the Great Resignation, of course, which I know is another big topic. But this burnout and Great Resignation thing sort of linking together as people now even remotely consider going back to, what would be a full-time job or something, it's like, whoa, this is a lot to take in. Maybe that's a good segue into some of the warning signs, Nat. What are some of the things that people should be looking out for with regards to burning out?
It's interesting that you just say that, Tom, because the Great Resignation looks like it's just come all out of like the woodworks all of a sudden. It actually hasn't. It's been a gradual process, and it's been a breakdown of the process. And that's what we like to look at as burnout. Burnout just doesn't happen overnight. It is a gradual process. It's that move from that chronic state of stress into that, like falling into that burnout category. It takes a while, but it can creep up on you. And the signs and symptoms, they might be really subtle at first, but then they just become worse and worse as it goes on. And this is probably what was seen, as a great, what is it? 41% of people are actually starting to change their jobs over for next year. It's a huge percentage there. But it is really important to know the signs of burnout before it takes over, and really can cause other breakdowns in your life. And the way I like to look at it is that we can focus on 3 different aspects. And physically is probably a very easy one to see, is that we feel really tired and drained all the time. We can have frequent headaches. We can have some muscle joint pains there. We're getting that lowered level of immunity, so we can have more frequent colds and infections there. And we can even have a change in appetite, and even sleep habits, like just even trying to get to sleep and trying to then stay asleep. Emotionally, we can have this sense of feeling of that we're failures, and we have a lot of self-doubt about what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve and how that's going to be perceived. That can then just lead to that feelings of being helpless, feeling quite trapped, and having that self-defeatist attitude starting to creep in. That can also then lead to a level of cynicism, a little bit more of a negative outlook, like, what's the point? I can't get it right anyway. What's the point in trying? That then leads to that lack of motivation, detachment, decreased satisfaction. So emotionally, then we can start to see that play out. And then behaviorally, we can start to see us withdrawal from certain work responsibilities, isolating ourselves from other people in our life, including our colleagues, family members, friends, even procrastinating and taking longer to get things done, again, lacking that motivation, even that drive there. We see that increase in substance abuse and, but drugs and alcohol are kind of utilized in a different way, where a lot of us were doing it maybe as escapism, maybe as a bit of a social outlet over the last 20 months. That's, again, a problem within itself. But this one is more just like, I need it to cope. Taking your frustrations out on other people is like that real projection of what's going on. And most importantly, the absenteeism that we see, not turning up at all, skipping work.
Gee, I reckon as you list those, it's such a broad range of, I guess, experiences for people, isn't it? And I can definitely think of seeing that in others in the last 2 years, and also maybe one of those for myself as well. It's quite interesting, isn't it?
As I said, it's a gradual process. Like, these are the signs, and it's about, like anything where any form of diagnosis, they've got to be consistent and then degrading, like chipping away at you over a certain amount of time. That is really leading to that diagnosis. But they are the symptoms that we need to look out for now. And I agree, pretty much we've all been touched by them, but it's whether or not we move through them. It's a little bit like our languishing podcast. Can we feel like that for a couple of days, and can we feel like that? And we feel a little bit more energized, or we're being able to brush it off? Yes, we know the signs. Yes, that's time to take our time out. But if it's continually chipping away, and those strategies that we were trying to, or believing that we could pull ourselves out of, they're not working as much anymore, that's when we're kind of getting more into that red zone there.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Okay. Now, I guess with burnout as well, like, if you're an individual and you're going through that experience, there's obviously, you mentioned the projected sort of nature of, for some people, if they are getting into that really cynical headspace, obviously that can have a broader effect on the people that you work with, or the people at home, and the relationships you have. What are how does that, like, from a burnout perspective, what have you seen, how that affects relationships and those around you? Is there something that's really obvious there that you've seen clinically, or something that your clients talk about a lot?
Yeah, like I think it's probably just that complete and utter exhaustion and feeling of being overwhelmed, and so then at that stage, little things are going to irritate you a little bit more, and this could be even something that might be away from the workplace. It could be something like, stack the dishwasher, or leave a broken watermelon on the kitchen bench, like my 6-year-old did the other day. Leaving things around the house where they shouldn't be. Like, we can see that can start to break down a lot of relationships because you're bringing your stress into a household or into another environment there, and that can then start to create a lot of strain on a lot of relationships. We are seeing a larger divorce rate. Is that due to burnout? I don't know. I can't actually, formally say that, but I'm pretty sure that there would be these communication breakdowns because of that fight or flight, that emotive kind of way we've lived, and again, not being able to compartmentalize as well as we may have, because we have been in a hybrid workplace. We have been in that, not a hybrid workplace, more that work from home, where we haven't been able to differentiate or compartmentalize or have that distance between work and home as much as we may have used to, like walking, catching a train home, driving home, bus home. So we just haven't had that. So yeah, it's certainly morphed a lot more, and it's being seen a lot more. The burnout signs there. But look, if they do kind of keep on simmering and they add up, they go unchecked, they have the capacity to really break down the relationship and also isolate that individual from other people.
Yeah, yep. Yeah, definitely. I've got a couple of random examples that I can think of in our house. I'm in the backyard area. I go in, I go to the fridge, and I always leave the fridge door open. And my wife's in there working, and she's like, "Here's the beep beep." She's like, it's driving her nuts. So, and she always leaves the key in the wrong spot for me. And so, but basically, both of us can't, survive if I can't survive if the key's in the wrong spot. Obviously, I shouldn't be leaving the fridge door open, but like, they're little, I guess, signs of us being scattered and not, in the
Yeah.
right state of mind, because we're sort of working and thinking, but also at home. And it's this terrible concoction of, two zombies at home trying to do too many things at once. But
Mm.
without the communication there, I guess, I can imagine that fridge door could turn into much bigger issues, perhaps, with other people if you can't communicate about it and what you really, want and need out of each other.
Absolutely. Yep. Yep, absolutely. And that is it is about that communication there, just to help reduce the risk of burnout, and even finding some spots. It's a really good strategy you bring up, Tom, and we've tried to do it at home there, whereas that when you come into the door, you have to put that, the car key on the wall, like on a hook. And the shoes always have to be in the garage before you walk in the door, because I don't have the mental space to find the kids' shoes in the morning. So things have to be put in that place. And if that just takes that at that decision-making loads and reduces those fighting, even the small things, that's going to play a major help right now in your relationships, because we just don't have that mindset for it.
Yeah, exactly. I'm glad
Mm.
we're not the only ones doing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
With burnout, there's obviously longer term risks as well that people might, if, I'm imagining if you're in that red zone or that burnout sort of space for a long time, that's obviously not a good thing. What are some of the risks that you often talk about, Nat?
Yeah, it's very real, and it's really distressing. It diminishes the personal and professional quality of your life. It can affect all your performances. It can lead to, unfortunately, it can lead to major depression. It can lead to suicidal tendencies, and ideation, even completion in that way, because it is basically that level of helplessness that we're moving ourselves into, and really giving up. We're done. That's what burnout
Mm.
is, and so it is really important to know the signs, so we don't get to that worst case scenario there.
Yeah, okay. And I know we've spoke a fair bit about, what it is and some of the warning signs there, and obviously those risks. It'd be great now to talk. We probably should talk about like some of the strategies that we can deploy individually or in a workplace just to
Yeah.
reduce burnout. What are some of the best strategies that you've heard of, or some of the advice that you normally give?
Yeah, and it's sort of like, I mean, I think exactly what you just said, know the signs, like even have little posters around, just to kind of remind people, especially when we are getting back into that hybrid workplace or, even full time into work, depending upon what industry you're in, and even just to take stock of how certain situations are making you feel right now and what activities you are doing to cope with that emotion, and that's a great way to are they taking, are they working for you or are they not? Burnout is that gradual process and it can creep up on you quickly. But if you can start to connect with your emotions and name your emotions, a little bit like affect labeling from last week, it gives you a bit of a step forward into knowing then what to do. And how to cope with that, and that's just a really good way, just to check in and to prevent, any issues. So, for instance, we don't want to be catching up if we're feeling incredibly irritated. The last thing we want to catch up, with a friend or a work colleague that, as Sasha uses very nicely, is a dementor. Basically, it sucks the energy out of you because that's not going to be good for you right now. So even checking in, what do I need right now and who do I need around me? It can really be a lifesaver for that current moment there. From a physical perspective, burnout really whacks you around. As you said before, you went out even with your wife to get out the door. It just required such a mental load, and it probably would have been exhausting even by the time you got to the bar. You got out and you had your time out. I think even now parents, especially with kids going back to school in Melbourne and also in Sydney, they're like, oh, by 9 o'clock they just feel exhausted because they're not used to this, this whole area there. So you have to just take care of yourself physically, and active recovery can be a really important component of this. And this is literally about, choosing some exercises that are going to really oxygenate your brain and reduce that fogginess and provide those natural endorphins there. So really, the sun's starting to come out. We can get that vitamin D, get outside, get your body moving, even for half an hour a day. It's amazing what that can do for burnout. It also then helps with sleep. And this is something that with burnout, sleep can be easily affected. So know your sleep hygiene well. Turn off the screens at least half an hour before you go to bed. Get rid of that blue light in your face. Even go for a walk around the block. Disconnect yourself from that energy even of the screens there. Make sure your room is well oxygenated. If you've got a window, open that window. It's amazing again with what fresh air can do for you, with that level of sleep. And look at sleep at least 7 to 9 hours. We do need that. It does creep up on us, and it's about self rejuvenation. It's about memory formation. Sleep is everything. So if we can feel a lot more resilient when we get better sleep, moving forward. I love, at the moment, enjoying also the simple things. So like even when you're out in nature, even when you're doing a little bit of exercise, there's a lot going on, especially in Europe right now, around forest bathing, which
Yep.
immersing yourself in forest, like going to different bushlands, and they say about on average about 2 hours a week, if you can spend your time going outside and really immersing yourself, with those fractals that we can find in nature, like that's through leaves, it's through the clouds, it's even through the bark. Fractals are that, it's a mathematical equation for a never-ending pattern. What that
Oh,
ends up
wow.
doing to the brain, it increases the alpha waves in the brain, which then helps with our relaxation strategies. So even just going outside, having a walk in the forest while holding a leaf and looking at it, it actually, what it does from a visual impact and relaxation on the brain is it's like this natural mindfulness without even trying. So forest bathing, I highly recommend that there. But it's the simple things. It's free and it's so good for us as well. So we can all afford it, can't we? I think as well as the nutrition, we can't overlook nutrition. If we've just run, I don't know, 85 marathons, which what it feels like, in
Yeah.
the last 262 days in Victoria and 200 odd days in New South Wales. We keep going, can't we? Um, how are we going to nurture our body? How are we going to recover it? Are we going to fill our body again, and fill our tank with alcohol and with caffeine and with processed foods? Have a bit of a think of it like that. So what does our body need? Our body needs, protein to recover, those complex carbohydrates, like we're in the recovery stage now. And that's a really important component to not overlook. And it's very easy to do, but have a look at, are you eating the right things that are going to refuel your body right now? Because that's a massive prevention of burnout. I also like to look at the purpose alignment and look, things are opening up again, East Coast and Queensland's opening their border, and it's all going to become feeling a little bit chaotic. A lot of people now, hearing the term re-entry anxiety, and people that have got those elements and those symptoms of burnout are probably feeling re-entry anxiety a lot more. And that's something to be super careful about. And this is where I talk about purpose alignment. And purpose alignment is a little bit about knowing your why. Is apart from working, what else am I doing? What else is my component of life? And if it's got to do with family, and if it's got to do, with friends, or if it's got to do with going out, if it's got to do with sport, try and even prioritize those. And just to make sure that if everything's just kind of coming at you, which I feel that along the East Coast it is, like everything's like, we've got to do everything now. That can be very, very, very overwhelming for many people. So I would then say stop, reflect, and just do what matters most to you. Break it down, create a list. It's going to be there tomorrow. Okay. So it's just more about, if I want to catch up with friends because I haven't seen so many for so long, who are they going to be and why are they going to be and how are they going to help me? And how am I going to feel when I walk away from that? And that is just it's like a bit of a stock take of your life, and that will just help you realign what is going to mean most to you right now. And that's what's going to fill your tank up again. So all about filling that tank up, Tom. Recognize your own limitations. Okay. Don't try to be a hero right now. If we don't have the ability or the bandwidth to do something, be honest with yourself, ask for help, park it, look at it, come back and look at it next week. It's okay. That self-compassion is a primary key for burnout, because we don't want to keep pushing ourselves if we can't do it. And we're in that burnout phase. The last thing we really want to be doing is pushing ourselves there. And social connections. I love, and I've done a lot lately. I've connected in with some really old mates, like some old mates with really good memories I haven't seen for years. And I used to love them. And I remember why I love them, because they were just easygoing. They were funny. There was no preconceptions. And I thought, what a great time to reconnect. What a great time to create that version 2. Let's reconnect with those people that might have been the high school friends that you forget how much fun you had with them. It's a great time to do it. You never know, you might find those golden nuggets again. I think I have. And that also brings back really familiar memories as well, because we want the familiarity right now. We don't need any more unpredictability. That's why people like to watch reruns of movies, because they know what to expect. So if you've got friends where you go, you know what, every time I used to catch up with them, I know exactly what to expect. And so I think they're going to be, in my area of purpose alignment, maybe at the top. They're going to fill my bucket. Go for it.
I love all those. They're really great. I love that purpose alignment one, especially. I think you're right. A lot of people now are, because of where we are in Melbourne, things are opened up, or on the East Coast. So the first thing everyone does is, oh, gee, let's try and catch up with all of our friends again. It's kind of nice just to pause and go, right, let's prioritize what's important for us or for me, and then you want to fill your bucket up, as you say. And I like that concept of like a stock take of your life as well, because probably if you go back a year, you maybe were doing things that perhaps weren't really filling up your cup, or so yeah, it's quite nice way to think of that. I really like that. Thanks so much for all those tips. I really love that list. I'm going to have to re-listen to this myself and work on some of that for me. Thanks again for your time. I really appreciate it. And no doubt the listeners will be getting a lot out of these, and we'll be catching up again in a couple of weeks, I believe.
Fabulous. Looking forward to it, as always.
All right. Thanks, Natalie.
Okay. See you, Tom. Have a